Okay, now we're going back to our small grids, and we're going to complete this one today. So we're going to insert another button over here. Here we're going to do count the neighbors. And again, I'm cutting this out of here. I'm removing this module 1, not exporting it and taking it back into my small grids one. And coming down to the bottom here and adding it. Again, it doesn't matter what order these subroutines are and functions and whatnot are in this given module. I'm just putting the new ones on the bottom. So now we want to count the neighbors. And again, we want to remember, let me resize this window a bit, that if we come back to here, our original grid is in rows 6 through 11 and columns 2 through 6. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down. Original grid in rows 6 to 11 and columns 2 to 6. Count neighbors grid is in the same rows, but it's in columns. Let's go back there and look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 through 13. You don't want to keep counting that. You can actually come in here and just make this be a 1 and a, move this down, 2, highlight those 2 and get the little black corner. Well, let's highlight, come over to here and go home, fill right. Oh, it didn't do it because I can't really see what's below there. 1, 2, okay. So we will get rid of that later on, but at least now it does show us those column numbers. So let's go back to our Visual Basic. And in here, I'm not going to do a lot of the code for you. I'm just going to kind of tell you what's going on. So we want to go through, and it doesn't matter. I can do my for loops based on this one or my for loops based on this one and then adjust accordingly. And so I'm going to, what I want here, the number here is how many asterisks I see. And remember, I'm going around all 8 cells. So I'm doing, I have 9 highlighted here, but I'm not looking at myself, meaning this cell here, B6, as I don't count myself as a neighbor. So I want to go through a loop, and I'm going to count over here and display the number over here. And that's what I mean. It doesn't matter which I do. So if I come back here, and I'm going to display in the neighbors one, so I'm going to say for R equals 6 to 11, next, and then I'm going to come inside that and say for C equals 9 to 13, next, and here's where I want to actually do something to count my neighbors. Now, what we haven't done yet is a function, so we need some variables again. So dim total as integer, and each time before we start, we're going to say, well, we don't even need to say anything in there. We're going to do a function, which we have not done. The difference between a sub and a function is a function automatically returns something. So I'm going to do a function over here. which actually I guess with the random integers we did do a function. So then we're going to say counting neighbors equals total. Obviously I've done nothing in between here to change it. So this is where I said you're going to do those 8 cells. So you're going to do the row above the current cell, then you're going to do the row of the current cell, and then the row below it. So my first count, and this is only the very, very first one, is you can see that I'm going F row minus, so that means one less, so that's above it, and the cell minus, which is one column less, equals an asterisk, then total equals total times 1. So if we look on this, I'm saying when I'm right here, I'm going to be checking this cell, and I'm going to be counting the neighbors here, and the first cell I'm looking at is this one right here. So I showed you that very first one that I'm counting, and actually you can see the start of the beginning of the second one. Whoa. But now where am I? I totally lost it. And so then I'm just saying total equals counting the neighbors, and it automatically returns that value in that integer. And so now I'm going to display this. So I'm doing 6 to 11, 9 to 13 is where I was counting the neighbors, but I can't really count the neighbors. I have to send it the value. So what row do I want? Well, they're both in the same row, so R is fine, but the column, I'm in 9 to 13, but the ones I want to count are actually the 6 to 11. So I'm going to say C minus 3, because 9 minus 6, or 9 minus 3 is 6, sorry. And then that will give me the columns I want. I'm sorry, I was mixing my columns and my rows up. This one is in columns 9 to 13, but the other one was 2 to 6, so that is going to be C minus 7. 13 minus 7. This will give us our count neighbors. Again, I did not finish my counting neighbors function. Or I did finish it, but I didn't give you all of that code. So now when I click on button 3, oh, I never put it in there, did I? And then I should say cells, and we're still in R. C is 9 to 13, which is the one we want. Dot value equals total. There we go. So now when we save that and click on this, we click here, and I am getting numbers. If you look at this particular cell, I do have 3 neighbors. If we go down to this, oh, let's go with the middle one. So 1, 2, that's this one right here. And if you look, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 neighbors. So it has now counted my neighbors, which is what we want it to do. So let's do the text here and say, click here to count neighbors. Now we want to come down here and make another button. And in here we want to button display next generation, which is new. And so we'll come back here, we'll redo that one and resize it and all of those things, but let's go into Visual Basic. And in this one, to display the next generation, we have to determine if life is created or exists. Okay, so my display next generation, this really actually has to be in a nested loop, so I do cells and columns, but I'm just showing you for one cell now, and I'll let you go in here and figure out where to add those for loops. But I want to show you the function test neighbors. And this one is a little bit more complex. We have a lot of new variables in here. We do need to know if there's current life, because one of the rules, if we go back to that, was any cell that has life lives on. If there's 2 neighbors or 3, but if there's no neighbors or if there's no life there now, it is not regenerated unless it comes with exactly 3 neighbors. So we do need to test that current one to see if life is there or not. And then if it's 0 to 1 neighbors, it dies. So we're just saying it's false. It doesn't matter really if there's life there or not. It's going to be blank on the next one. If there's 2 or 3 neighbors, it will live. If there's exactly 3 neighbors, even if it's a blank cell, it reproduces. But at the same time, because of this one, if there's exactly 3 neighbors, it continues. So we don't need to test both. And then if there's 4 or more neighbors, it dies as if by overcrowding. Again, no need to test for current life, as if that number is 4 or higher, there will be no life in that next one. So we're going to run this one, and it's only going to test that first one, meaning here we have 3 neighbors. So we should still have life there, and we do. So I want you to go ahead and do those nested loops, and then I'll tell you what we're doing next. Okay, 2 more buttons to go, so we're going to now do another button. And this one is going to be to move, let me see, button, move next gen. And again, we have to cut that out of here and remove module 1 and put it in our small grids. Going to the bottom just so you know where it's at. And so this one, what we're going to do is we're going to copy this or go through one at a time and make this grid show up over here. I recommend we do that first, and then we'll clear those last 2. So again, we're dealing with both those numbers, so it doesn't matter which way we go as long as we get them both in there. So we're going to move next generation to current life, then clear next generation and counting neighbors grids. So again, it doesn't matter which way we go. In here, I'm going from the first grid, and then I'm saying getting what's in that second grid. So just this amount. Well, when I click on button 5, it will move all this to match up here. So now these 2 look the same. So I said test that, and then go ahead and put in that last part, which is really quite easy, of which we're just clearing those other 2 grids. So I'm simply coming down here and pasting that in. Oops, I didn't mean to put the line there. Clearing other 2 grids. So now click here. Now this is going to mess it up because when I count the next, well, no, it still should do that. Then it clears those 2 grids. So rename that one, and then I think we're ready to turn it in. Let me double check. Okay, yes, that is all we needed. So here you can see I don't want to do this unless I want to start a new one, but I can count the neighbors, see the next generation, move that, and I continually click these 3 buttons, and I will get 1 generation at a time. To test this, there's a couple things you might want to know. So if I have 3 asterisks, whether they're going down or across, it doesn't matter. But when I do this one, the next generation flips it. So that one flips back and forth, like I said. So that tests it that it's okay. The other thing to know is if I have 4 in a box, that will remain, that just stays constant. So it just keeps doing the same thing over and over. So when yours is working correctly, save that and submit that one into the Small Grids Dropbox.